Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating and kind of radical idea. What if there's a hidden blueprint, a universal code that actually governs the structure of, well, everything, from the tiniest atom to the entire universe?
Just think about that for a second. One single structure defining everything that has form. I know, it sounds a little like science fiction, but that's the core idea we're unpacking today from our source material. And at the very heart of this entire framework is one simple number, 5. The idea is that just 5 fundamental elements, all working together as one inseparable unit, are what build everything we can see and touch. So, the big question is, what exactly are these 5 building blocks? Let's break them down one by one and see how they supposedly combine to create the infinite variety we see all around us. Okay, here they are: matter, energy, information, something called the systemic component, and transformation. Now, the really key idea here is that you never find one of these alone. It's all about the unique recipe, the specific balance between them that makes a star different from a stone or a living cell different from a computer. So let's start with the first 3, because these are the ones we're all pretty familiar with. You could say they're the foundations of reality, as science has understood it for centuries.
First up, you've got matter. Pretty simple, right? It's the physical stuff of an object. What's interesting is the source assigns each element a symbolic color pairing. For matter, it's black on white, which really signifies that idea of pure substance.
Next up, of course, is energy. This is the engine, the juice. It's the capacity for action that drives literally all processes. Its symbolic colors are dark blue on yellow, which really gives you a sense of dynamic force, doesn't it?
And the third piece of the puzzle is information. Think of this as the blueprint, the underlying code. Just like DNA defines a living thing, this element defines the nature and function of any object. Its color pairing is white on lilac, which kind of hints at its more ethereal, organizational quality. So, matter, energy, information, okay, pretty standard stuff. But this is where it gets really, really interesting. The source material points out that while those first 3 are widely known, there are 2 other absolutely crucial elements that are almost never talked about. And that brings us right to the heart of this framework, the 2 hidden principles that govern structure and change. According to the source, understanding these 2 is the key to unlocking the whole model's potential. Okay, so first up is the systemic component. Now, this one's a little more abstract, but it is so important. It's the organizing principle that defines an object's role within a bigger system. So think of an electron's position inside an atom, or an organ's function within a body, or even a person's role in a society. It's the element of context and structure, and its symbol is white on black. And the 5th and final element is transformation. So if the systemic component is all about stable structure, transformation is all about dynamic change. It's the engine that lets things grow, evolve, adapt, or even be created and destroyed. It's the principle of constant flux, represented by a powerful purple on red spectrum. Seeing these 2 side by side really makes their relationship clear. The systemic component is all about order, stability. It asks, where does this fit? But transformation is about the dynamic process. It asks, what can this become? They're like 2 sides of the same coin, the forces of stability and the potential for change, always working together. So we have these 5 distinct elements, right? Matter, energy, information, structure, and change. But how do they actually lock together to form a single, coherent system? What's the glue that holds them all together? Well, the source proposes a pretty surprising answer: the pentagram. Yep, that ancient symbol. Here it's presented not just as a shape, but as the actual geometric framework that binds these 5 universal building blocks into one inseparable whole. To help us wrap our heads around these concepts, the source draws a really fascinating parallel to something a little more familiar: the classical elements from ancient wisdom. And when you look at it, the connections are just so intuitive. Energy is linked to ether, that subtle life force. Matter is linked to water, the substance of life itself. Information is like air, carrying thought and communication. The systemic component, our element of structure, is perfectly represented by the stability of a mineral. And of course, transformation, the engine of change. What else could it be but fire? So that's the model in a nutshell, a universal blueprint made from 5 interconnected parts. You've got the substance, which is matter, the drive, which is energy,
the code, information, the structure, the systemic component, and the catalyst for change, transformation. According to this framework, that's the recipe for everything.
And that leaves us with one last fascinating question. If this five-part structure really is a universal blueprint, what could you build or change or transform in your own life just by consciously adjusting the balance of these five elements? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us.